$38 million worth of new capital improvements to both improve and add to our system. At the same time, we protect the assets that we have here today. We support our park system in this budget. This morning I was over at the Milwaukee County Zoo. We have one of the best zoos in the world. In this budget, we move forward with a proposal to make it long-term a world-class zoo by creating a nonprofit just like they do in San Diego and at the Brookfield Zoo in Chicago and in many other great places across the country, because we know we can do it together. We maintain a basic safety net in this budget for older adults to make sure they've got long-term care and community centers and food programs. We reach out for those with developmental and physical disabilities and not only maintain our services but add to it with family care to make sure we ultimately eliminate the waiting list for services for those between 18 and 59 with developmental and physical disabilities. We ensure that those who suffer from mental illness in our community have basic supportive housing to make sure they can go forward. And yet again, as we have so many times before, we stand up for our veterans, the men and women who have served our country, just like those who are serving here today, because they are our most valuable asset. We maintain a transportation that keeps our valuable asset of General Mitchell International Airport, one of the best in the country. At the same time, we maintain a transit system that keeps in place routes that get people to and from work and to and from work opportunities. Transit routes are in place, the routes are there, you can say what it is, but we didn't cut the routes as they were originally proposed. We keep in place what we expect to have as a quality of life here in Milwaukee County. Now, how do we do that? Well, in addition to reducing wasteful spending and cutting back in some areas, one of the biggest things we do in this budget is to create a balance, a well-needed balance between public sector and private sector wage and benefits. For too long, we've had an imbalance. If you think about it, the Kaiser Family Foundation about a month ago came out with a report that showed that the average family plan, that an employee picking up their match, the employee match in the private sector for a family health care plan, averages about $3,500 per year. In contrast, the lowest cost plan for a county employee requires an employee match of $840. Now think about that. The average taxpayer here in Milwaukee County has to go to work day in and day out to make $3,500 that they have to provide to pay for their match. The employer picks up the rest. And then they have to come home and work that much harder to pay the property tax bill for Milwaukee County to pick up the over $16,000 that it costs for the county's employer match for that health care plan. It is time to create a balance so that the people who pay the bills, the taxpayers, have wages and benefits that match with those who are paid for by the taxpayers. Yeah. And I'm one of those at both ends, and I expect to have that balance. I think there are great public servants who work for us. This is not about setting one against the other. It's about saying for those who are hurting in our community, for those who work at employers that have asked for pay freezes or pay cuts, for those who picked up the cost of their health care plan or the retirement plan, it is time to have a balance between the taxpayers and those paid for by the taxpayers. Because in the end, to get this county going again, we have to have an economy that's going again. And the economy is going to recover when we provide an environment, not when government does it, but when we provide an environment that allows private sector businesses, small and mid-sized businesses in particular, to have the opportunity to create more private sector jobs. We need more private sector jobs to get the economy going, not more public sector jobs. Is a smarter, leaner, better budget. And simply put, the reason it is because I made a promise 7.5 years ago to all of you in this room and the taxpayers across this county that if elected, I would spend your money, the taxpayers' money, as if it were my own. I have kept that promise, and if you give me the opportunity, I'll do it again and again and again, and we need to make sure the county board comes along with us. Now, finally, I just want to tell you this. This is a great room. You are a great, excited group of civil, decent, hardworking people who want nothing better than a better life, not only for yourselves, but for your family, for your children, for your grandchildren, for your neighbors, for your friends, for others down the block. There are going to be some today, just as they did 7.5 years ago, who are going to try and create a fight about this. They're going to try and shout you down. We're not going to fall for that. This is not about fighting some other side. This is not about picking enemies. This is about picking a future we can believe in. This is about standing up, and that's important to remember. Because 7.5 years ago, when we stood in rooms like this at places across this county and talked about the pension, a lot of pundits tried to say that this was all about anger. This is all a bunch of angry people. And I got to remember at the time when I used to serve in the legislature and I was carpooling back and forth to Madison, I got to admit, I was pretty upset. Tonette, my wife, was upset. My parents were upset. My in-laws were upset. I think all of you were upset the more we read about what was happening with the pension and the spending and the taxes and everything else. But you know what? When I looked at what happened, when I looked at faces like so many I see across this room today, what I realized was it wasn't about anger at all. Sure, we were upset. But if it had been about anger, you know what would happen? That would have been the last straw. Many of you would have checked out. You would have said, I'm not getting involved anymore. They're all crooks. Or worse yet, you would have said, I'm moving out. That's it. I'm joining my neighbor, my aunt, my uncle, my friend, my cousin, whoever else who may have lived here in Milwaukee County, but said this was enough, it was time to move out. But you didn't do that. We didn't do that. Instead of checking out, we said, we're going to make a difference. And not hundreds, not thousands, but tens of thousands of ordinary people did an extraordinary thing. You said, standing united, we can take our government back. That told me at that time, as much as it tells me we can do it again, that the real emotion on display when you get our attention is not just about anger, more importantly, it's about hope. Hope that if we stand united and we follow on the principles, we stand, I should say, on the principles that a group of great American patriots did 222 years ago. On September 17, 1787, when George Washington and so many other great patriots stood up and signed the Constitution, they said, we have the right to take our government back then, we have the right to take our government back in 2002, and with your help, we're going to take this budget and this government back again in 2010 and beyond. Thank you for your support, thank you for your efforts. God bless you and God bless you all for joining us.